Hello, everyone. I'm Sam Legg, and I'm a student at Susquehanna University. I'm going to be reading you Owl Moon. Before we read, I want you to think about a time you might have gone on an adventure or a walk with a family member or a friend, and what you saw, how you felt, and what the experience was like. Looking at the cover of the book, we see that the title is Owl Moon, and the author is Jane Yolen, and the illustrator is John Schoner. Jane Yolen, the author, wrote all the words, and John Schoner, the illustrator, drew all of the pictures. From looking at the cover, what do you think the book will be about? Who do you think the characters are? All right. As I read this first page, I want you to visualize what the character sees, what they hear, what they feel, and just picture what it was like to be where they are. It was late one winter night, long past my bedtime, when Pa and I went owling. Does anybody know what owling is? What do you think it is? There was no wind. The trees stood still as giant statues, and the moon was so bright that the sky seemed to shine. Somewhere behind us, a train whistle blew long and low, like a sad, sad song. I could hear it through the woolen cap Pa had pulled down over my ears. A farm dog answered the train, and then a second dog joined in. They sang out, trains and dogs, for a real long time, and when their voices faded away, it was quiet as a dream. We walked on towards the woods, Pa and I. Our feet crunched over the crisp snow, and little gray footprints followed us. Pa made a long shadow, but mine was short and round. Why do you think that their shadows are different? I had to run after him every now and then to keep up, and my short, round shadow bumped after me. But I never called out. If you go owling, you have to be quiet. That's what Pa always says. I'd been waiting to go owling with Pa for a long, long time. Do you think that the girl is excited to go owling with Pa? Would you be excited? We reached the line of pine trees, black and pointy against the sky, and Pa held up his hand. I stopped right where I was and waited. He looked up as if searching the stars, as if reading a map up there. The moon made his face into a silver mask. Then he called, "Hoo, hoo, 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 hoo," the sound of a great horned owl. "Hoo, hoo, 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 hoo." Again he called out, and then again. After each call he was silent, and for a moment we both listened. But there was no answer. Pa shrugged, and I shrugged. I was not disappointed. My brothers all said, sometimes there's an owl, and sometimes there isn't. Do you have any older siblings? And have they ever told you about things to come in your life that you looked forward to? I know that for me, I have some older brothers, and they would always tell me about what life was like in grades after the one I was in, and it would make me excited. We walked on. I could feel the cold as if someone's icing hand was palm down on my back, and my nose and the top of my cheeks felt cold and hot at the same time. But I never said a word. If you go owling, you have to be quiet and make your own heat. We went into the woods. The shadows were the blackest things I had ever seen. They stained the white snow. My mouth felt furry, for the scarf over it was wet and warm. I didn't ask what kinds of things hide behind black trees in the middle of the night. When you go owling, you have to be brave. Why do you think that the author needs to be brave? Do you think that she's scared in this moment? What do you think she feels? Then we came to a clearing in the dark woods. The moon was high above us. It seemed to fit exactly over the corner of the clearing, and the snow below it was whiter than the milk in a cereal bowl. Have you ever seen the milk in the bottom of your cereal bowl? And do you notice how white it was? I think that it's interesting that they compared the snow to milk. I sighed, and Pa held up his hand at the sound. I put my mittens over my scarf over my mouth and listened hard, and then Pa called, "Hoo, hoo, 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 hoo. Hoo, 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 hoo." I listened and looked so hard my ears hurt and my eyes got cloudy with the cold. Pa raised his face to call out again, but before he could open his mouth, an echo came threading its way through the trees. Hoo, 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 hoo. What do you think that was? Do you think it's finally an owl? Pa almost smiled. Then he called back, "Hoo, hoo, 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 hoo," just as if he and the owl were talking about supper or about the woods or the moon or the cold. I took my mitten off the scarf off my mouth, and I almost smiled too. The owl's call came closer from high up in the trees on the edge of the meadow. Nothing in the meadow moved. All of a sudden, an owl shadow, part of the big tree shadow, lifted off and flew right over us. We watched silently with heat in our mouths, the heat of all of our words we had not spoken. The shadow hooted again. Pa turned on his big flashlight and caught the owl, just as it was landing on a branch. For 1 minute, 3 minutes, maybe even 100 minutes, we stared at one another. How do you think that the girl feels now that she's found this owl and her pa successfully caught it with the flashlight? What do you think you would feel? Would you be excited? Would you be scared? Then the owl pumped its great wings and lifted off the branch like a shadow. Without sound, it flew back into the forest. "Time to go home," Pa said to me. I knew then I could talk. I could even laugh out loud. But I was a shadow as we walked home. When you go owling, you don't need words or warm or anything but hope. That's what Pa says, the kind of hope that flies on silent wings under a shining owl moon. Now, I really enjoyed that story. My favorite part was how they kept trying to find the owl, even though it was hard sometimes. And I loved seeing the relationship between the little girl and her pa. And I think it was really special that she got the opportunity to go owling with him like the rest of her siblings. Now, since we read that story, we know a little bit about what it's like to go on a hunt for something. As an additional activity with this read aloud, I included a link down below with a worksheet where you can go on your own scavenger hunt. Now, on this scavenger hunt, there are a bunch of items that you can find outside. Since you're going outside, please make sure that you're with an adult or your parent or guardian. I'm very happy that I got to read to you today, and I hope you enjoyed Owl Moon.